Nancy Guthrie. Before anything went wrong, nothing felt unusual. Nancy Guthrie's life moved at the quiet, predictable pace of someone who had already lived long enough to value routine over surprise. Mornings came early. Lights were turned on one room at a time. Familiar paths through the house were followed without thought, the kind traced so often they no longer required attention. Neighbors knew her by sight more than conversation. She was present in the background of the neighborhood, not because she demanded notice, but because she had always been there. At 84 years old, her days were not marked by urgency. They were shaped by habits accumulated across decades, small tasks completed in familiar order, doors locked the same way each night. Nothing about her life suggested movement, disruption, or sudden change. If anything, it suggested permanence. That sense of permanence is what made the next morning feel wrong. It began with absence rather than alarm, a missed appearance, a silence that lasted longer than it should have. When attempts to reach her failed, concern didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, carried by the uncomfortable realization that no one could account for where she was or when she had last been seen. The house stood exactly as it should have, but the person who gave it meaning was gone. By the time authorities were notified, the situation had already shifted from uncertainty to unease. An elderly woman does not simply vanish without explanation. Investigators approached the case carefully, documenting what could be confirmed and resisting what could not. There were no immediate answers, only a narrowing window of time where each unanswered question made the silence heavier. This is the moment where stories like this usually begin to point somewhere. Instead, this one stopped. From the start, officials were clear about what they knew and what they didn't. They confirmed her age. They confirmed the report. They confirmed that she was unaccounted for. Everything beyond that remained unresolved, suspended in a space where facts had not yet formed into meaning. And in that space, the tension began to grow. The search began not with urgency, but with measured steps. Law enforcement moved carefully, treating the home and immediate surroundings as a place to gather evidence, not to jump to conclusions. Doors were checked, windows examined. Security cameras, the modern witnesses of everyday life, were reviewed. Every routine motion of the previous evening became a point of scrutiny. When lights went off, when locks clicked, what movements could be traced? The absence of a trace was itself unsettling. Neighbors, friends, and family retraced their last confirmed interactions. Times were noted, conversations remembered. In a community accustomed to predictability, every small discrepancy took on new significance. Who had seen her last? Who noticed the unusual? Who could account for the hours in between? Each question had an answer that didn't exist, or at least, one that wasn't yet known. Authorities issued statements outlining what could be verified. The woman had been reported missing at a specific time, she had certain routines, and her disappearance was uncharacteristic. They confirmed her age, her health conditions, and the fact that she relied on familiar schedules. Beyond that, the timeline grew murky. The void of information pressed against everyone's sense of reality, leaving uncertainty to fill in the spaces where certainty should have been. Every step taken by law enforcement and volunteers illuminated how fragile knowledge can be when someone simply isn't where they are expected to be. Streets, normally quiet under late afternoon sun, now felt strange, each yard and porch shadowed by the possibility that something unseen had intervened. The psychological tension was not in what was found, but in what remained missing, the person herself, and the answers that should have accompanied her presence. By the middle of the day, social media and news outlets began to echo what was confirmed.
You get tips on everything, okay? You're TMZ, so you have tips coming in all the time. So when this one came in, and as you look at it now, was there anything about how it came in or anything about it, this letter, this ransom letter, that was unusual to you?
It felt like somebody means business. I mean, when you read it, it's very detailed. This person thought through, I believe, again, if it's legit, this person thought through the markers of showing that it's real. The Bitcoin address we checked immediately, and it's a real address. The FBI mentioned at the news conference today something that we had seen, where they mentioned the Apple Watch and the floodlight, and that was what really put my antenna up, and we immediately called the sheriff because that's what we could say to him, which is, here are these two items they're mentioning. Does this make you interested in it? I will say this, that they do mention an Apple Watch, as the FBI said, and they do mention the floodlight, the damaged floodlight. There is something else, and it is the placement of the Apple Watch, which has not come out. And if that placement is accurate, I'm sure that is something that puts this letter on the FBI's radar.
Oh, okay. So you're saying not just that there was an Apple Watch, which I am aware, was in that letter before any reporting, when you got the letter, before any reporting on the Apple Watch came out, right? So it wasn't as if they saw the reporting and put it in there. But you're saying it talked about a specific location. So if that turns out to be accurate, obviously, that says a lot. Right. Harvey, as you and I are sitting here,
and that's, look, we called the sheriff immediately and gave them the letter, and then a couple hours later we got a call from the FBI, and they had a lot of questions about this. And I think that placement of the Apple Watch, if this is true, is something where they would immediately take this seriously.
All right, Harvey, I don't know if you got a alert or anything on this, but I haven't seen it, and you haven't seen it, I don't believe. Just was posted on Instagram by Savannah, another video with her and her brother, I understand. So let's just both watch it here for the first time. Just her. Let me play it.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
So that was her brother, Harvey, Savannah's brother. She just posted that, Cameron, her brother. All right, so Harvey, what he just said there.
I can give you some context.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they are pleading for this person to come forward if it indeed is the person behind this letter. The letter says, you will have no way of contacting me. This is the only contact. So that's why they're pleading for proof of life. That's why they are begging, because they have no idea how to get in touch with this person. They went to great lengths in sending this email to us, in making sure that it stays anonymous. I don't know that the FBI is at all close to figuring out where it came from. My guess is they haven't, based on what our IT team has done here. So I don't think they know who sent it. And the person who sent it says, this is going to be the only contact, and you have no way of getting in touch with me. So they made that clear. That's why I believe that they are begging for this, because they have absolutely no avenue to make contact.
All right, so, but that's really crucial what you just said, Harvey. You're saying in the letter it says this will be the only contact, and it sounds like from what Cameron's saying, which echoes what they said last night, which is they haven't had contact. We have heard from no one, is what he says, as Savannah had said, and we want a proof of life. I mean, they're asking for the very basic, prove that you have our mother and that she's alive. But it sounds like, from what he's saying, Harvey, is that if this letter is legitimate, and I know we're going to keep saying that, it's important to say it, but if so, it means that the sender's doing exactly what they said they were going to do. They sent the letter, and that's it.
They began the letter. I don't think I'm giving anything away here. They began the letter by saying that that Nancy is okay but scared. So they say she is okay, and also that she's aware of the letter and the demands.
That Nancy Guthrie herself is aware of it.
Yes.
So Harvey, then what else are you hearing at this point? I mean, given, right, that letter was sent to you. I mean, have you heard anything else? But what else are you learning?
So there's something in the letter, and Aaron, I just want to make this really clear, that this is just my opinion, just based on analyzing it, that my sense, and Charles in my office, we've talked about this at length today, my sense is whoever sent this letter is based in the Tucson area. And I say that because of a reference made in the letter, a sentence in the letter. It feels to me, reading it, that this is Tucson based. And I think that's a fair analysis based on, my discussions today in the office and just reading this letter. So this doesn't feel like this is somebody out of state or out of the country who hatched this plan. It feels more localized. And I'll underscore that by saying that the other outlet that received this letter is a local outlet in Tucson. And think about that. Why would they do that? Why would they know that station if they weren't Tucson based? I think this is something that was hatched by somebody in that area based on the read of this letter.
All right, Harvey, since you're here, stay with me because you mentioned that local station, and I happen to have Mary Coleman, who's with KOLD 13, with us now. So let me just bring her in here. Mary, I know you could hear Harvey talking about this, and I'll play again in just a moment. Cameron Guthrie, Savannah's brother, what he just said. But, I wanted to give you a chance to respond to what Harvey just said. He's saying that, because you've seen this letter as well, that he felt from something in it that made him think that the person who wrote it is in the Tucson area, knows the Tucson area. Obviously, you live there. This is your home. Do you also share that view?
I understand what he's saying after reading the letter over and over again about referencing the fact that it may be someone local. It certainly can, but aside from a couple of words in the letter, I don't know. I don't want to speculate that it's not someone from outside either. So really, there are a lot of questions remaining, but I can definitely see how Harvey would think that it might be someone here locally in the Tucson area who might be responsible for this.
Carefully emphasizing the official narrative. Calls for information were measured, cautious. Photographs released were accurate representations, timelines repeated precisely, statements credited to authorities. Speculation was absent, not because it didn't exist elsewhere, but because those managing the case were intent on making clear distinctions between the known and the unknown. And yet in the spaces between confirmed facts, the weight of uncertainty pressed hardest. The world around the neighborhood shifted imperceptibly. Routine no longer felt safe. Ordinary motion carried an edge. With every unanswered question, the story began to expand beyond a single household, touching neighbors, friends, and the community in ways that no one could have anticipated. As the day stretched into evening, the investigation took on a new dimension. The absence of Nancy Guthrie was no longer just a private concern. It became a puzzle that demanded careful, deliberate attention. Authorities began canvassing the neighborhood, speaking with residents whose routines intersected with hers. Every interaction, every observation was cataloged, not to assign blame, but to reconstruct a timeline. Investigators confirmed what could be verified. The last time she had been seen, her habits had been consistent. She had not expressed any intention of leaving or traveling. Officials emphasized that her disappearance was highly uncharacteristic, and that every minute without information increased both the urgency and the emotional weight of the situation. Volunteers joined in quietly walking streets, checking familiar paths, but nothing immediately emerged to explain the absence. In the home itself, rooms remained untouched. Furniture held its place, meals were not disturbed, yet the emptiness was palpable. It was in the absence of movement, the quiet that replaced routine, that the tension became almost physical. The silence drew attention to what could not be confirmed: where she was, why she was gone, and whether she could return safely. Each unknown pressed against the fabric of normalcy, reshaping the perception of an ordinary neighborhood into a landscape defined by absence. Media coverage began to report verified details carefully: the age, the last known routines, the fact of the report to authorities. Statements were repeated, timelines mapped, photographs released. Beyond that, no claims were made. No narrative of motive or explanation was introduced. The story unfolded as a series of facts, punctuated by their incompleteness, leaving audiences to feel the suspense in the empty spaces. Families nearby, once accustomed to certainty in small things, began to feel its absence. Each unanswered question weighed heavily. Had she left voluntarily? Had something unforeseen occurred? Officials insisted that they were following every lead. But the leads themselves were limited. The weight of not knowing hung over the community like a fog, dense, lingering, impossible to ignore. Evening settled over the neighborhood, and with it came the realization that this was a case without closure, at least for now. Rooms remained, routines paused, questions unaddressed. The world continued, but a shadow had been cast, one that would not lift until answers were discovered, or perhaps indefinitely if they never came. Days passed, and the absence of Nancy Guthrie began to ripple outward. The search expanded beyond the immediate neighborhood. Law enforcement coordinated with broader regional resources, ensuring every possible lead was investigated. Official updates remained measured. Each press release repeated the facts: her age, the report of disappearance, her last known routines, and the confirmation that she had not been seen since. What was not known was far more unsettling than what could be stated. Inside the family's home, the normal rhythms had halted. Chairs sat untouched. A calendar remained pinned in its place, marking days that continued without the person who had lived them. Each unanswered call, each visit that yielded no trace, added to a collective anxiety. The family moved carefully through rooms, revisiting conversations and recollections, seeking something overlooked, some detail that could bring clarity. Officials encouraged them to report anything, no matter how small, emphasizing that even the smallest verified fact could reshape the timeline. The community, meanwhile, remained alert yet cautious. Neighbors checked windows more frequently, walked familiar streets at unusual hours, and exchanged observations. They were acutely aware of the official timeline: when she had been last seen, when authorities had been notified, and what areas had been canvassed. Their attention to detail reflected a subtle fear: the realization that even in familiar spaces, uncertainty could take root. Investigators continued to differentiate what was confirmed from what was not. Security footage had been reviewed. Witness statements were cataloged. No evidence had emerged to explain the disappearance. The tension grew not from what was found, but from the persistent void. Every search, every interview, every press statement only served to highlight how much remained unknown. With each passing day, the psychological weight became more pronounced. The uncertainty infiltrated thoughts and conversations. Questions repeated themselves silently. When had she last been safe? Where could she be? Was there any possibility of returning to the routines that had once defined her days? And with each unanswerable question, the story grew darker, not from violence or discovery, but from the sheer absence of explanation. The investigation pressed on, yet the community and family lived suspended in that void. Each verified fact acted as an anchor, keeping them tethered to reality, while the unknown stretched beyond it. The quiet persistence of unanswered questions created a tension that no statement, no timeline could alleviate. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie remained unresolved. Official updates were sparse, carefully reiterating only what could be confirmed. Authorities continued to follow every verified lead, canvass every neighborhood, and review each piece of evidence, but the absence persisted. Every statement, every press release, only reinforced the weight of what was not known. The family continued their search in silence and in shadows. Each day carried the same questions, the same uncertainty. Simple actions became charged with meaning: an unopened door, a chair left in place, a calendar marking days that would not be lived as expected. The lack of answers created its own rhythm, a slow, relentless pulse of anticipation and dread that no one could escape. The community remained watchful, aware that certainty had been replaced by possibility. Each neighbor, each passerby, carried the tension of not knowing. Even ordinary streets and familiar yards were touched by unease. Life went on around them, but the quiet spaces in which she had lived and vanished remained filled with questions. Investigators emphasized that no verified evidence suggested foul play or a specific location. All that could be confirmed was her absence. Every lead that might have explained it was either unsubstantiated or unresolved. The unknown had become the defining element of the case, shaping the thoughts, fears, and routines of those closest to her. And so the story lingers, unresolved, without closure. The facts are few, the unknowns many, and the weight of the unanswered continues to press. It is a story that will not ease with time, one that exists in the tension between what is known and what is missing. The absence is not simply physical, it is a void in understanding, a haunting reminder that some mysteries endure because the answers never arrive. If you feel drawn to the story, if the tension of the unknown unsettles you as it does those left behind, subscribe to follow carefully researched true crime narratives. Every story matters, not for shock, but for the truth it illuminates and the questions it leaves behind.